This episode of the Game Biz is brought to you by the Elder Scrolls Online. For 20% off on your pre-order, just go to offergb.com/ESO. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Game Biz, episode 20 for March 13th, 2014. I'm Gary Gannon. You're watching GameBreaker TV. Joining me, as always, it's been a little while. We've been in between shows, but here he is, the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Monty Sharma. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Gary. How about you?
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Good to be back. We haven't had a show in a couple weeks, so I'm excited to answer some questions and talk about the business of games. So let's jump into it. All right, we got the first one here. This one's a long one, so bear with me here. But this one is from Ark Heesh. He says, "Hey Monty, got the news on Irrational Games, and I could ask your thoughts on it, as it almost seems like a needless layoff." So if you guys didn't hear, Irrational, creators from BioShock and all those amazing games, had some pretty big layoffs, pretty much closing down the studio, if I'm not mistaken, or it's down to basically a skeleton crew of nothing. Anyway, all right. So, since my question comes in after seeing Bethsoft tweet a link to their recruiting page referencing news of the Irrational layoffs. I guess my question is, how relevant should I consider such events? The idea that being that if they are in the phase of this cycle to do hiring and bring on a large number of new employees, does that leave me in a worse position to get hired in my time frame? Let's start with that.
Yeah, actually, let's start with Irrational for a second.
Yeah, okay, let's start there.
So Irrational's in our backyard. They're in Quincy, just a little bit south of here. It was a really tough thing, but it's also the thing that if you know Ken Levine, so the guy who did BioShock, and he's done a lot of seminal works. This guy considers himself, I shouldn't say he sees himself as an artist, and there's a certain amount of logic that says yes, it is. And he didn't do BioShock 2 because he didn't believe they had enough time to produce the quality that they wanted to, so they skipped 2. Somebody else did 2, and they did 3, which was awesome. And I think essentially what happened with Irrational is he's moved to his next big idea, and so something that's going to be truly amazing. But when you look at it, it's going to take a whole bunch of pre-production to figure out. You can't carry 200 people for a couple of years in pre-production. So it isn't the studio shutting down, or certainly hope that isn't the end result. It is more a case of, look, we're going to go do something over here, and we'll be hiring back up again in the future, but in the near term, we just don't need this many people.
Yeah. So, if you had to just throw a number out there, how small of a team do you think they put together on a new project like that? Like, what do you think the huddle is? 5, 6, 10?
No, they've got 15 people. I'm willing to bet 1 or 2 of them are straight overhead because, when you've got an operation like that, you don't want to give up somebody who handles payroll and finance and all that sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. So, let's say 2 overhead and then 13 people who would be the core team of, okay, we've got a really big idea. Let's go figure this out. So, and 2K did it in a decent way. I mean, I've seen a lot of indecent layoffs where, hey, look, we're not throwing you out of the office. You got a place to come, spend time, do that. We are going to, put up some money for people who want to start something. We're going to help you out. We're going to give you a decent severance. So 2K was, very decent about this. This wasn't a explosion. This was a planned, shifting. Now, one of the things I do love about the game business is, yes, things like this happen, but the other thing is every game developer I know out there was tweeting, was on Facebook, was putting out, hey, look, there's jobs over here, there's jobs over here, we're hiring, we're looking for this.
It really is
all
amazing
that.
how that happens, because that does not happen. Like, you don't see Hollywood ever do
No.
that. People lose their jobs every day in Hollywood. Nobody. You're just used to it. You're right.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Like, people just come to their aid so quickly on Facebook and Twitter. It's almost immediate.
It is. And so, you know, that goes to sort of Rakesh's point of these game companies tend to be in one of two modes: frantically hiring furiously or laying people off. You know, there doesn't seem to be all right, we're chugging along with about the same complement for several years. No. Either we're short 100 people or we've got 100 people too many. So in that environment, you know, he does some very specialized stuff. So he's asked us a few questions in the past. I'm actually going to get to meet him next week. He's going to come to our little thing at GDC. So, you know, that'll be interesting. But he does kernel level security. So this is, you know, fairly esoteric. Not that many people are good at it. And so any game company that's interested in that space, I think he's just as competitive as somebody coming out of, you know, another game job with the same experience. So I don't think that necessarily blocks you. It has a lot more to do with location, timing, all of that sort of thing. But you should absolutely understand that the game business is volatile. You know, it'll go up, it'll go down. Now, if you're in a position, if you're in a tech center, so I think he's like somewhere in the DC area, if you're in that sort of an environment and you can roll in and out of enterprise software or some other kind of operation, great. You know, you can do that. You can stay in the same place, do some fun stuff. You could get to the point of being able to, you know, create your own thing with a few people and keep that stable for a while. So, you know, there's a lot of things like that out there, but I don't think you're handicapped by people who are coming out. I don't think there'll be that much competition for what you do.
Going on to the rest of his question, he says, does this leave me? He says, should someone like me really be worried about competing with established hires, as regardless of how valuable my talents are? They are not directly related to the gaming industry. And he says, to put it more directly, should I maintain my plan and try to put my best face forward I can in a later time frame, like basically in a later time frame, or should he be more aggressive about transitioning and move his time frame window forward and just apply right now and just get going?
Yeah, you know, I'd say apply right now, mainly because you're just getting older. And it's the sort of thing that the younger you are, the more opportunity you have to screw up. You can take lots of risks, and it's a lot easier to recover from them in your 20s and even 30s than it is in your 40s and 50s. So go ahead and try it. Engineers are, you know, they're inherently valuable to so many different people. Nobody ever said we have too many programmers. You know, it has just never been said. So anybody who can afford one more programmer is going to hire. So go ahead, go after the game industry, you know, do it now, get into it, see it, and see if it's what you think it is. You know, is it the experience? Is it the style? Is it what you want to do? And people who get in, they love it, and they know, you know, the variability. I had a friend at Disney who got whacked a couple of weeks ago. They know that, but it's still, for the work and moving from job to job, it's a lot of fun. There's a lot of good stuff you can do. So, you know, I'd say do it sooner rather than later.
All right, next up, this one in from Anthony. He says, hey, Monty and Gary, are there any community type groups on the internet or in real life for people in the game industry or wanting to get into the gaming industry? Something like American Institute of Graphic Arts, but specifically for gaming. Thanks, and keep up the great work. Thanks, Anthony. Any online groups like that they should be paying attention to, joining up? And
yeah, you know, not necessarily online. There's like real groups. So there's IGDA, the International or Independent Game Developers Association. IGDA has chapters all over the place. So if there's any significant game development happening in your region, there's an IGDA chapter there. They do lots of education. lots of opportunities for people to connect there. Then, it sort of rolls more to either technology-centric stuff or regionally-centric stuff. So, in the Boston area, we've got Boston Indies. So these guys just get together, and there are a whole bunch of small developers who get together once a month. There's a bunch of users groups around technology. So Unity has, fairly substantial users groups. Again, it's a bunch of people who are getting together. They're talking about stuff. They'll have speakers come in. They're sharing ideas. And not all of them, in fact, I'm willing to bet, geez, half of them, maybe even less than half of them, are professionally working in the industry. And the rest are people who are interested in it and who want to know, who want to try, who are hoping to do something. Maya, there's an Autodesk, their acronym's really painful, AUGA or something like that. But, there's a lot of things down those paths that there are these groups that get together locally. Once you do that, you just get hooked in and, you follow from event to event. You're in the flow.
And we might as well mention the event of all events, which I got to go to, but it's coming up next week, which is the Game Developers Conference in San Francisco. I mean, that's where all the devs go. So if you can afford to at some point, obviously this year might be a little late, but that's a good place to go and network for sure. So I don't think it's not really an online group to be a part of, but it is definitely a group to be a part of. Once you go a few times, you start meeting everybody. Thanks, Anthony. All right, so next up, Aaron says, Monty, if PlayStation Now is a success, will the PS5 and Xbox 2, I hope they don't call it that, will the PS5 and the Xbox 2 resemble the Chromebook? Also, how do Comcast data caps factor in with all of that? Good questions.
Yeah. So you remember Gaikai and On Live?
Oh, yes. Yep.
Yeah. So Gaikai got picked up by Sony. On Live's just been sort of resurrected. They're going to try and do something different. That's sort of what rolled into PlayStation Now. This is a never-ending question. I mean, I've been asking this question since 1990. It is network latency and cost of bandwidth versus local storage. That's essentially what how efficiently can you centralize things? So on one hand, if you look at your local desktop processor, it's running maybe a fraction of a percent. Is it actually doing something? The rest of the time it's doing squat, right? Idle cycles, doing little housekeeping things, but nothing that really is useful. So if you were to actually move things into the cloud, into the data center and stream them down, then great, you could operate processors at higher utilization, which would result in lower cost per operation in the game. Great. Storage. If you've got a game up on a hard drive, well, you don't need to have 10,000 hard drives with the same game on it. So all of those things make sense in a centralized fashion. The problem becomes it's still fairly expensive on the data center side. You've got, you got to rack a lot of gear, and the cost of air conditioning, which actually ends up being your highest cost in the data center.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, the cost for
something
air
you wouldn't even
conditioning.
think of. The air conditioning bill is higher than everything else.
Yeah, it's the amount of power that's needed, right? So we had one time there was a blizzard. This is the funny thing is, there's a blizzard in Boston 4 or 5 years ago. It knocks out the power to our main data center. Well, no problem. They've got backup, but it knocked out the air conditioning unit.
Oh.
The blizzard knocks out the air conditioning unit. It gets so hot inside the data center that all of the servers turn themselves off to prevent damage.
So there's your backup system's not really going to do anything.
But you're calling a customer and you go, look, the blizzard broke the air conditioner and it got too hot during
your
the
server's
blizzard.
fine. It just can't run. The air conditioning's not working.
Yeah, it's crazy. So all of those sorts of things, and really they're stopping some data centers have empty floor space. They have the bandwidth, but they don't have the air conditioning. You
Hmm.
know, they can't get enough power to keep it cool. So anyway, uh, all of those things eventually will reach the point where, yes, we will put everything in the network. You need better connectivity than we have now. You need to have, it'll probably be one or two wireless standards away from where we are right now. And when you get to that point, the concept of pervasive computing, where everything has a tiny little chip in it, and all that's doing is it's sending certain signals to the network, and then it's acting on it based on whatever it does. And so whether that's lights, your fridge, to all the games you play, that'll happen. You need to get to the point where the latency is low enough. So, Gaikai and OnLive always competed on the element of how many data centers did they need and how
Hmm.
far away from the end users were those data centers? What was the last mile latency? All of those things are starting to get fixed now. And so that'll take care of itself. The Comcast data caps, not really a problem. And all the stuff about net neutrality is a bit of a red herring. Um, it essentially is Comcast, Verizon, all these guys, they want to sell you bandwidth. They don't love the guy who's, pulling down a terabyte of stuff. But if you're doing anything sort of in the norm of what usage is, that's not a problem. That's where they make their money. The same thing is, all right, so now we're going to stream all this PlayStation stuff. That's fine. Well, who sells the bandwidth to the data center, right? It's all these big carriers.
Hmm.
So they're making money there. They're controlling that. They're making money at the other side, and the cost of this keeps going down. So in 2000, we had enough dark fiber in the US to cover bandwidth needs until 2012, or at least that was my estimate at the time.
Wow.
So that's a really long time in terms of technology. So all the things in terms of electronics that, improve what you've got, 10, 100 times what was there before. So there isn't a lack. If there's anything, is there'll be more competition with overlay wireless networks, and all of this stuff will be kept in check. You know, Anybody who's a normal user will see no real effect of this at all.
Interesting. All right, last up this week from Jonah. Jonah says, I am sick and tired of the greed of game makers. The free games demand tons of money and it's hard to find real games to play. It says Dungeon Keeper seems to have increased the hate for this type of business. Do you still support this model?
Yeah, so when this question came in, I actually started to play Dungeon Keeper. Like I read the stuff online
Uh-huh.
and I fired it up and I played it. Let's talk about Dungeon Keeper and let's talk about the model in more general. The guys who made Dungeon Keeper made a mistake. And what they did was they took a venerable franchise and they changed how you play it. So the thought of the developers and the producer actually came out and said this is, look, we were looking at sort of 5-10 minute play sessions. So great, you pick up your iPad, you play for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and then you're
But
done.
Dungeon Keeper fans play for hours. It's the
Exactly.
wrong
So
franchise.
absolutely the wrong group to take it to. So I not particularly a fan. It's interesting, but it's Clash of Clans
Mm-hmm.
essentially in a dungeon to me. I played it. I play 5-10 minutes at a time.
But their
I haven't
business
spent a
model,
dime.
but we've seen their business model on a ton of other games. It's not really, it's not a business model that's that
Right.
outside of the norm. It's just a matter of they didn't,
Tuning.
yeah, they just, how did they not
Yeah.
realize that people were going to play this for hours though? Dungeon
It,
Keeper.
it's uh, you know, you talk yourself into a lot of stuff when you're when you're doing things, and somebody got it probably early on that, look, we're building a short play session game. Okay, great. We're building a short play session game. that's the metric everybody's working with. When I look at free-to-play games, there are some that are really poorly designed. And they're ones that, I'll start to play, I'll spend 15, 20 minutes, and then you're stuck to the point that, look, if I don't pay something, I'm not going to get past where I am. Those are games I usually abandon. I was telling you earlier about Puzzle and Dragons.
I was gonna say, isn't it really good? But correct me if I'm wrong, 'cause I don't play much of it, but isn't Candy Crush one of those games that literally it's time based? Like if you gotta wait like minutes.
No, yeah. So there's a different mechanic there that game developers will use. Is a lot of games you have so much energy, and the energy comes back over time. The reason being is they found that people will burn out on a game and stop playing sooner. So if you can spread the playing out, it'll keep you going longer. So, the Puzzle and Dragons, your stamina builds up. As you go up levels, you have more stamina, you can play a little longer. But the dungeons get harder, so you end up spending more, and the time ends up being about the same, no matter what the stamina is. But their game, I played it for a week and a half, and fairly heavily, let's say an hour a day. And I never gave them a dime. It went, it was great. Then I hit a point where, oh, okay, now I understand the game. Now I know what's happening. And, oh, for this, yeah, I'll spend money for that. And I spent money, and I spent a lot of money. And it was well worth it. So my fun to dollar, ratio was great there. But the ones that 2 minutes into the game, they're looking for some money. It's like, screw you. I don't like this. I'm not interested in it. And I think really it's a problem where the designers have to say that free to play doesn't mean you just charge people. It means the game design really has to fit the model. The player has to see the value, and all you're doing is lowering that barrier to entry. That's what it is. And there's actually an effort in the business to change free to play to games as a service.
This kind of probably is a really hard question to answer, but I just want to throw it out there and see what you think of it. Is there a whole sort of subset of business of game developers out there making somewhat crappy games with just business models like just layered and layered and layered, and they can just pump these out so fast that is it actually profitable for them? Are they actually making good money making those types of games? And are enough people opting in?
There was something, after Flappy Bird shut down, there was, at one point in time, there was a new Flappy Bird clone going up every 25 minutes.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people who will fast follow, they'll look for a misspelling in a name and things like that, and they'll have crappy little games. And it works, but it's nothing substantial. It's never going to get featured in the App Store. It's not going to do what a real game can. So, I almost say forget those guys. It's anytime a Hollywood movie comes out, there used to be the porn version of the movie with clever punny titles. That stuff, yeah, that's going to happen. But the big things, the big games, the stuff that really matters, that's going to be built by developers. It'll be new, and that's where the vast majority of the money will go. So that stuff is there. Part of what we're going to start to see is the cost of marketing these games is going up. Since the cost is going up, they need to get more from the users. To get more from the users, the games have to become more substantial. And so this game as a service concept of, we're just going to keep running. Play this game, and we expect you to play it for months. And so all of that sort of stuff will actually work to push out the low end of the market, because you'll quickly look at it and go, wow, this is a crappy little thing compared to what the studio produced game is. And that'll shift the balance in the game industry. As nice as it is for the little guy launching an app, it's not going to be effective for long.
Let me ask you, you brought it up. I gotta get your opinion on Flappy Bird. How did that happen? What was it? What did it? How did it become such a phenomenon that every news organization picked up on it? It became a story. What's your take on it? What really did it?
I mean, he had the game out for a while, so the game was good. So it was a well-balanced game. You could play it, you had fun, but you struggled with it and you kept doing things. It was well done. But he didn't have much of a marketing budget or any, so it took months before it started to pick up. The way society is right now is there's sort of this feedback loop where, oh, somebody starts talking about it, then somebody starts talking about people who are talking about it, and next thing you know, everybody's tweeting, it's on Facebook, and everybody's got to do it, and it ramps up in a ridiculous way. So the guy who made it, wasn't expecting it. He put a game out, and a couple of months later, it starts to take off. And then he starts getting grief from people of, oh, it's just a clone of such and such a game, and you didn't. Screw you! I'm taking my toys and going home.
But why does he care about that grief? I mean, the estimates were that he was making at least like $50,000 a day in advertising. I mean, why would you take it? There's also a lot of shaded mystery around this guy, and I've read some things. There's a lot of speculation about some things that are a little bit shady as well. I don't know why take it down? Because you're getting a couple of emails and people are a little bit saying, like, come on, you can't take it on the internet. I mean, I get yelled at on the internet like 50 times a day.
But you're a different kind of person, right? I mean, this is somebody who, for whatever reason, and I can see this with a lot of people, they weren't expecting, were not ready for that level of success. And, I see game developers all the time who are like this, that they've done a great job, they love their game, what the hell is all of this now? And it just blows them away.
What was he going through? Besides, I don't understand. All I know is he's watching his bank account increase by 50 grand a day, and he's getting a couple tweets over here, people yelling at him. Like, what is it that you can't handle that, like, this is too big for you to deal with? I don't understand.
Well, I mean, imagine if you weren't, Gary of Los Angeles, and you're just a guy sitting somewhere, and okay, you got $500,000 in the bank. And you don't want any of this grief. You don't want people chasing. You don't want all this crap. Screw you. I've got other things I want to do.
I don't get it. He's been making games for years. This is kind of what he's been sort of waiting for was a hit. He got a hit, and then he takes it away.
Yeah. He's just not emotionally prepared for it. I think that's the phrase.
He needs a manager or something, or somebody to slap him around. But apparently it's coming back. That's the last we heard, I believe, yesterday, is that it's coming back with a warning. He's going to put a warning in the game, because apparently we're all too addicted to it. So he's going to warn us to basically put the game down and stop tapping on the glass so much. That's what we're hearing. So
it'd be a good thing.
Interesting story, though. Monty Sharma, follow him on Twitter at Monster, MONTSTER27. That is the Twitter account that you can tweet him at. And if you have a question for Monty, you can send it to him on his email address, which is monty@gamebreaker.tv. That is your email address. You can follow me at Gary Gannon on Twitter. Go to facebook.com/GameBreakerTV. And, of course, check out the new GameBreaker website. We redesigned it from the bottom up, top down, bottom up, top down. And it's awesome on a mobile device now. Oh, my God. That's one of the main reasons we actually did the redesign. It's a dream on mobile, which it was terrible before. So,
yeah.
Check it out. Yeah, thanks for reinforcing that, because it was bad. We know. It's great now. Go check it out. Go check out the new GameBreaker. All right, we'll see. Actually, we probably won't see you next week with the Game Developers Conference coming up in San Francisco. So we will see you probably actually, I don't even know if we'll see it the following week, but we probably will. So, yeah, keep it tuned to the socials. We'll be back on track really soon. Have a great day. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.